So I'm going to show you what the free lab planning sheet looks like and go over with you how that is going to be filled out. These will be completed in class, a couple of class periods, about 2 class periods before we actually do the free lab. That way, it can be assured that every one of your group members has participated. If someone is absent on the day of planning, then we will be reviewing your lab planning sheet in the next class period so that they know what their responsibilities are. Every group member has a responsibility, and every group member needs to be part of the planning process so that they can have mise en place done before we go into the lab. Any student that does show up on that lab day and they have not met their responsibilities, they will have an alternate assignment because they've let their group down. They do not get to participate in the lab. So we are looking at a more standardized recipe as we've been covering this unit on standardized recipes. So the course name is Foods and Nutrition. You will be filling out what your block kitchen number, which day your lab will actually be on. There's also going to be a place for each of your group members. Each group is probably going to have about 2 to 3 if we do it in 2 days, or 3 to 4 if we do it in 1 day, depending on how many people are eligible for cooking at that time. So you all are going to be creating a menu item. This will be your title. Your prep time, cooking time, and serving time will also be complete, but that can be done at the end of your recipe when you have filled out your timing sheets. So the cooking method would be, how do you plan to cook this item? Is it going to be baked? Is it going to be cooked in a skillet? Is it no cook? There's no cooking method. A recipe or source link for this one, you'll be able to copy and paste into a specific recipe, the recipe that you found, and then your yield would be, how much this recipe makes. So this is the part that differs a great deal in the lab planning. The ingredients are each ingredient listed, how much is needed, and who is bringing the food item in. So for a free lab experience, you all actually bring a food item in to create a meal. For any student that is unable, either because of transportation issues or because of financial issues, if they're unable to get their food product, they need to come to me in advance and let me know. You cannot come to me the day of the lab and tell me that you couldn't afford your product because I don't have it on hand. I'm not a grocery store. So if you come to me just one-on-one and say, hey, Ms. Fuqua, my group has assigned me a bag of mozzarella cheese, and I can't get it, and then I'll take care of it for you. So when it comes to the food items, no student should be bringing in all of it, and no student should be bringing in large or expensive items. So each student's financial responsibility is $5 or less. So for example, if your group decided to do spaghetti, that typically would involve a box of noodles, a bag of cheese, a jar of sauce, and maybe a 1-pound package of meat. So 4 people in a group, maybe somebody would bring in a loaf of bread for some garlic bread, maybe a little butter. I have the flour or sugar or items on hand, but most of the ingredients you would bring in. And that's a big reason, too, why you get this approved with me. So you and I sit down with your recipe, with your planning sheet, and then we talk about what I might have in the lab and what you would need to bring in or what I would not have. So the ingredients and amount needed would be like a box or a bag. For example, if you've been scheduled to bring in mozzarella cheese for spaghetti, you don't need to bring in the big giant commercial size bag. Like 1 small bag is plenty for that particular recipe. You will also fill out a lab timing sheet for your lab, just like we do for all of the other labs. That will be attached to the free lab planning sheet. So this essentially is going to be the recipe, the standardized recipe that you utilize to plan for that lab together. There are a few limitations in free lab. One of them is it takes too long to make brownies in my pan. So it takes a long time to bake brownies, like 45, 50 minutes. If you get them in the oven right at the beginning of class, write it first. So when you mise en place and you time manage, you need to make sure that your oven is ready at that temperature and that you can do that first. You do need to bring in a disposable foil pan or a pan from home that you can take with you, and not use one of my pans to bake brownies. That's one of the few limitations. We do not have a deep fryer. So when it comes to deep fried items, they need to either be pan fried or you need to be able to do them in the oven. Something like tater tots it works really well, and you can get them nice and crispy and fine in a really hot oven in about 20 or 30 minutes. So when you plan your menu, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the limitations of my equipment and time and timing. There's certain things like you don't have time to roast a whole chicken or fry chicken with a bone in it. And so when you plan your menu, we'll talk about that.